Bacardi's board of directors have 48 hours to make their most expensive decision ever. Pay $2.2 billion for a vodka brand that didn't even exist 7 years earlier. Bacardi's CEO knew if they didn't act, their biggest rival would. And whoever got Grey Goose wouldn't just sell vodka, they'd own the blueprint for turning pure illusion into liquid gold. But to understand the greatest marketing trick ever pulled, we need to travel back to where it all began. In the harsh winters of Russia, peasants discovered that fermented grain could do more than fill empty stomachs. They could numb the cold and offer an escape from reality. Centuries of consuming this drink became a daily necessity for every household. So, Russia's rulers saw an opportunity, not for drinking, but for something more diabolical. What if this peasant necessity could become their greatest weapon? The Tsars discovered it was generating mass wealth and control. So the formula was simple: keep it cheap, keep it flowing, and keep the population compliant. It soon became their most powerful tool in controlling the masses. This was when one man saw vodka's true potential. An entrepreneur named Pyotr Smirnov did something never been done before. He took this cheap drink and applied marketing before it even existed. But this was guerrilla marketing. Smirnov bribed journalists for good reviews. He donated to churches in exchange for endorsements. He pioneered charcoal filtration to create the smoothest vodka anyone had ever tasted. By 1886, Smirnov captured 2/3 of Moscow's vodka market. But his masterstroke, getting Tsar Alexander III himself to grant Smirnov the official supplier to the Russian royal family. By Pyotr's death in 1898, his business was worth 20 million rubles and was succeeded by his son, Vladimir Smirnov. For the first time in history, vodka wasn't about survival, it was about status. By 1900, 30% of the government's revenue came from vodka taxes alone. What happened next would change the world's perception of luxury forever. The country was so dependent on vodka that when Tsar Nicholas II banned it in 1914, it was the beginning of the end. The Russian economy collapsed, grain shortages led to bread riots, public resentment exploded against the monarchy. The result? The Russian Revolution didn't just overthrow the Tsar, it formed a new communist regime, the Soviet Union. The Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized power and declared war on wealth itself. Private businesses confiscated, property seized, wealthy families executed or exiled. The royal family fell, and the Smirnov vodka empire could be next. So Vladimir Smirnov fled Russia with nothing but the family recipe and a suitcase full of desperation. First to France, then to America, a country that had never heard of vodka. Here, they would rebrand from Smirnov to Smirnov. This is where the story gets interesting. Because in 1940s America, vodka faced an impossible challenge. How would you convince whiskey and beer drinkers to buy something designed to have no taste? Enter John Martin, an advertiser executive at Hoopline Spirits who saw something no one did. He bought the rights to the struggling Smirnoff brand for $14,000, investing all his company's savings. His partners thought he was mad. However, this decision would change drinking culture forever. Instead of fighting vodka's flaws, he turned them into features. When others bragged about flavor, Smirnoff sold an invisible spirit, perfect to drink without anyone knowing. White whiskey, no taste, no smell. The results exceeded Martin's wildest expectations. Within 5 years, Smirnoff's sales exploded to over 100,000 cases. That $14,000 investment had generated millions in revenue for Martin. But vodka's real breakthrough came through something unexpected. In 1962, vodka got an endorsement from the most influential man in America. 3 words that transformed vodka into a cultural obsession.
Medium dry martini, lemon peel, shaken, not stirred.
Vodka?
Of course.
Thanks to James Bond, vodka wasn't just acceptable, it was aspirational, suave, masculine, sophisticated. Throughout the next decades, vodka's popularity soared uncontrollably. In fact, by the 1970s, it had overtaken whiskey as America's most consumed liquor. Smirnoff had conquered the mass market, but in doing so, it lost its exclusivity. And when something becomes that common, it loses its mystique. But this opened an even bigger opportunity. Here's what nobody was asking. What if someone could convince Americans to pay twice that much? Standard vodka had been selling for $8 to $12 a bottle. And what Absolut did in 1979 would break every rule in business. They weren't selling better vodka, they were selling something far more valuable. Those iconic minimalist bottles, paired with Andy Warhol campaigns, sold art, status, identity. The results were staggering. Absolut bottles flying off the shelves at $20 to $25, double the price of standard vodka. It was clear there was a wide gap in the premium vodka market, and one American businessman was taking notes. Enters Sidney Frank, the man about to pull off the boldest gamble in history. Frank had never distilled vodka before. He wasn't Swedish, Russian, or Polish, but he had some previous success in selling liquor in the United States. He turned Jägermeister from a traditional German medicine into appearing in every college party in America. But even though the vodka market was different, he understood something his competitors missed. While they obsessed over distillation techniques, Frank realized he wasn't in the vodka business at all. Instead, a completely different one altogether. So in 1997, he created the most expensive vodka brand on the market, Grey Goose. Not the best quality, the most expensive. Frank set the price at $30 a bottle, almost double Absolut's price. But how on earth would he convince the world to buy it? To pull this off, his master plan consisted of 3 parts. Number 1, visual deception. Every element of a Grey Goose bottle is carefully selected for subconscious triggers. The frosted bottle with heavy glass felt expensive in your hand. Instead of cheap screw tops, it used cork closures like fine wine. They even packaged their bottles in wooden crates, mimicking French luxury products. But Frank's most devious design trick hid in plain sight. The bottle's dimensions were purposely designed to be tall and thin, so tall that they wouldn't fit in the middle or bottom bar shelves. As a result, bartenders were forced to stock them on the top shelf, a subtle tactic used to signal premium status. Suddenly, Grey Goose was always in a direct line of sight to customers. But all these psychological designs would be useless if not for the second step. Number 2, strategic placement. They knew exactly who their demographic was, wealth and status-craving customers, so they didn't sell their bottles in any bar. They selectively chose exclusive hotspots across America, fancy hotel bars, high-end nightclubs that celebrities went to, and even on popular TV shows like Sex and the City. But the last step is by far the most effective strategy of all. Number 3, psychological manipulation. Frank understood something his European competitors didn't. Through years of importing liquor into the US market, he knew that American consumers had a fatal flaw. They equated price with quality. Americans don't buy vodka, they buy the story behind it. Sidney knew Grey Goose's distillation process was inferior to established brands, but instead of playing catch-up, he flipped this weakness into his greatest strength. While competitors bragged about endless distillations, Frank did the opposite. Grey Goose distilled just once to preserve character, then filtered through precious champagne limestone. Made from the world's finest French wheat from the Picardy region, France had the ultimate luxury story. Wine, cuisine, Louis Vuitton. In American minds, anything French meant sophistication. So Frank based his company in France and launched Grey Goose at $30 a bottle. Everyone in the industry laughed. Experts predicted Frank would soon go bankrupt. Why would anyone pay $30 for a vodka when a standard one cost $8? What happened next would define everyone's beliefs. Restaurants couldn't stock it fast enough. Celebrities name-dropped it in rap songs. Nightclubs made it their top-shelf vodka. By 2004, Grey Goose dominated the luxury vodka market, generating more than $100 million annually. It was speculated that they made 80% profit margin while competitors made 30%. Not bad for 7 years and a made-up story. But Frank's biggest play was still coming. He was about to execute the ultimate exit strategy. Remember that boardroom at Picardy? Here's what nobody realized at the time. Grey Goose wasn't selling vodka. Frank had created something far more valuable. Bacardi was buying the blueprint for manufacturing luxury from nothing. When Bacardi's CEO signed the contract, he also launched an arms race. The $2.2 billion handshake sent shockwaves throughout the spirits industry. Now every major company was scrambling to create its own super premium vodka. Belvedere claimed its 600-year Polish heritage. Ciroc went a step further. Bring in Diddy. At the time, Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just famous, he was the face of the lifestyle they were selling. Rather than a traditional endorsement, Diddy received a 50-50 equity split, so instead of just selling it, he became the brand. Ciroc grew from 40,000 cases to over 2 million cases annually, generating over $100 million. And so the prices of bottles kept climbing. Some even reached hundreds of dollars. More premium brands were coming out. But here's what nobody wanted to admit. Blind taste tests revealed the uncomfortable truth. Consumers couldn't distinguish $200 vodka from $10 vodka. The luxury vodka market is running on an illusion. The premium taste is psychological, not physical. Fabricated luxury, marketing budgets that matched presidential campaigns, celebrity endorsements worth millions. There's a reason many celebrities today are launching their own brands, not only in vodka, but across all types of alcohol. If a businessman could sell vodka for billions through pure illusion, just wait until you see how they sold us time. Click here to find out.